see that? Did you see that intro?
That was awesome.
We've got to give Rick Blood, right? Some just amazing
kudos.
Cred there. I mean, that's amazing what he did. Hi there, I'm Parker Springfield, Judy Fine here with me as well. And I think this is going to be, I want to call this a pre-premiere.
Okay.
Only because,
-1. Okay.
Yeah, the idea behind this show, Judy and I worked together in the past, and the idea behind this show is kind of like putting people in a debate forum on TV.
Yes.
And to do that, you need two sides. Usually.
Oh.
Usually.
Okay.
So today's show is a little bit different. We're going to have to be kind of devil's advocate in a lot of this. We get to play the opposition as well as the neutral hosts as well.
Yes.
But we'll and there's a reason
fun.
behind it, and I want to get to the reason.
Yes.
But before we do, I think it's important to introduce our guest for today. With the first show, we had to start with somebody or a group of people that that people have an opinion on. And
we found the right person.
We did. Let's welcome Ian Freeman from Keene onto the first program here. Hi, Ian. Thanks for being here, by the way.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were hoping to have somebody to be your opposition.
The showdown.
I was looking forward to it. I really was.
And we had asked several different groups in town because, you know, the Free Keene movement...
People have heard of you.
Yeah, and people have opinions on what they're doing. And there has been a new group in the recent couple of months that popped up, Stop Free Keene.
They've been around for a year, more than a year
now.
Yeah.
Stop Free Keene wants to stop Free Keene. You know,
the name
That's
pretty much
all they
says
got.
it. Yes.
it says it. And we had talked to them, and to their credit, they were going to be on the show. We do have some challenges with timing. The show has to be taped at, we're taping the show 1 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. And so it's not actually live, and that posed some challenges for some of these people to come on the show. It's a little upsetting, because I wanted to have the opposition.
A showdown.
But
I'll just keep saying
But we
that.
couldn't do it. And I have to look this up, and I didn't print this out. I really should have printed it out, but their official statement on this.
Oh, they released a statement?
They did. They released a statement, because I asked them, I said, look, we're trying to be as fair and as balanced as possible on this show, and so what is your official reason? And
the reason for not coming?
The reason for not coming on the show.
Correct.
Okay.
What is your official reason for not coming on? And really, I mean, if you really want to boil it down, I know this is so rude looking at my phone while I'm talking.
He's really posting on Facebook,
But,
guys.
I'm posting on Facebook. Look at me on Cheshire TV.
It's the first show.
Yeah.
It is. But it's okay. And that's kind of the reason why I feel good about doing this is because it's not structured. And that's one of the things that people had kind of told me was going to happen, being taped. That if we were going to tape a show, we could edit the show to make people say things that they didn't say.
No, you're recording live. I mean,
It's live to tape.
Live to tape, yeah.
So their official statement, we'll be unable to make it to the taping of the show. The members who will be willing to represent Stop Free Keene cannot take time off from work on short notice. Please extend to the viewers that our lack of attendance is by no means an indication of fear in publicly opposing Ian Freeman. Thank you for inviting us, and please consider us for another time.
Yeah. That's strange, because there's 1,400 people in their Facebook group. I mean, they had 2 weeks' notice. You'd think they could have dug one person up.
And I was hoping that was going to happen. So because of that, we have to play devil's advocate. So, and I'm going to ask you some questions that are going to be uncomfortable.
I'd just like to say, if at any point someone would like to step up, I'd be happy to come back anytime.
We believe
for that.
you.
Yeah.
Why do you think people have this?
Why do they hate you?
There's a hatred. You are public enemy number one.
That's true.
You are. Nobody likes you.
That's not true. That's not
I'm
true.
just saying. I'm saying a lot of people don't like you. Like
Sure.
a large majority of people don't like it.
I don't
Why?
know if it's majority. I don't think a poll's ever been taken, scientific survey or whatever. But there are a number of people who don't.
Right.
And part of it is because, well, at freekeene.com, some of the people there, including myself, make a little bit of noise. We make headlines, and we talk about ideas that are different than sort of the status quo. Mm-hmm. And in history, whenever someone has threatened the status quo, even in a peaceful way, they are violently opposed in many cases. So there have been people from Free Keene bloggers who have been attacked in the streets physically over filling people's meters, for instance. So, and why would someone do that? I don't know. It's just crazy.
But here's why. Here's the devil's advocate stuff coming out, because I try to be as neutral, because I look at what you do and what you guys are doing, I look at it a little bit differently than I think a majority of people. I understand there's a lot of the theatrics that you guys do. I look at it as exactly that, it's theatrics, because that's why we're here talking to you. That's why you get on national television. That's why things happen. Why? Because you do things a little bit differently and you get attention that way. But people don't like the theatrics.
People hate activism. I was reading an article, I think it was by the Mercatus Center, and I don't remember the numbers, but it was a significant majority of people who were just like, I just hate activism, no matter what the issue is, no matter anything. So for instance, if you were to take a sign that says Monadnock Showdown, Thursdays, 8 o'clock, and go out to Central Square and hold that sign and, wave at people driving by, I guarantee you someone's going to roll down their window in the middle of winter to tell you,
go get a job!
Yeah.
They don't care what's on the sign.
yeah.
They just hate activists. They hate activism.
Do you think, though, well, you know what, let's go back a little bit, because I hear a lot of people's reactions to things that you do, but can we go back to just what the objectives behind the methods are?
Sure. Well, and there's so many different methods, right? So, we can talk about different methods.
Sure.
There's things that are not so controversial, like today, if I weren't here, I would probably be at Concord at the State House testifying in front of a bunch of boring political committees.
You made the right choice.
That stuff doesn't, yes, absolutely. But that stuff doesn't, it doesn't sell newspapers and it doesn't make headlines. Mm-hmm. It's good activism, it's important work. So a lot of the stuff that is less controversial is sort of less known because it's just not as interesting. Sure. But the general idea behind what I'm doing here, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I moved here as part of the Free State Project back in 2006, and the idea behind the Free State Project is to encourage 20,000 liberty-loving people who understand that what freedom means is that you should be free to live your life how you want, so long as you don't hurt anyone else. We want to get people who believe like that to come to New Hampshire, because the idea was that New Hampshire was probably the best destination for people who feel that way, given
Why
the live
New
free or
Hampshire?
die. Well, given the live free or die mindset up here, and I think that New Hampshire was the right choice. There were 10 possible states that were in the running for the destination, and New Hampshire won overwhelmingly in the
Why did there need
vote.
to be a destination? Why not start groups in various places?
Because that doesn't work, unfortunately. The people who believe in the ideas of liberty are few and far between. They're just, for those who like the ideas, there are only so many of those people who are willing to actually do something, willing to lift a finger, to actually be active, to try to achieve more freedom in our lifetime. And those people are just too dispersed throughout the country to really have an impact in any one place. So numbers matter, and the idea was let's get a concentration of numbers. You can look back at other migrations, like the Mormons moving to Utah, or the hippies moving into Vermont in the 1970s. And there's no doubt those migrations had an effect on the areas to which they were moving.
Is the idea to get enough people from the Free State Project into a particular state and essentially overwhelm the majority of people there? So that, for example, if a majority of people are in a specific town and they're part of the Free State movement, well, the government of that town is by nature going to change.
That's true. 20,000 isn't enough to overwhelm anything. If you had enough people move to a small town like Grafton, then maybe you could, with raw numbers, do something there. And in fact, there are a number of people who've moved to Grafton, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and they've actually been kind of stirring the pot up out there, but they don't really cover it with any of their own media, so we really don't know what's going on. But in most places, whether it's Keene, Manchester, or whatever, I mean, the activists are severely outnumbered by average folks. So the real goal is to introduce people to the ideas of liberty and hopefully change hearts and minds, which obviously is a tricky thing to do, especially when you're doing activism that is of a controversial nature.
I want to stop you about that, though. If you're doing this kind of activism, it's so controversial, and you've got people that you're essentially upsetting so much and so quickly, is the message gone now? Because you could tell me today that you have a cure for cancer. You could tell me that, or you could tell the majority of people around here that you, Ian Freeman, from Free Keene and the Free State Project, has the cure for cancer. How many people are going to listen to you right now? Because you've upset the table. You know, the apple cart's been so upset by everything.
You know, I've been out on the streets in Keene, and I think there's a difference between sort of the political class and average folks.
Right.
Average people, I don't know even if they're aware of the Free State Project. Maybe more in Keene than in other areas.
Because it is separate.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I don't represent the Free State Project. I'm just a participant in the Free State Project. But you know, when I've been out doing petitioning on the streets, we did the Bearcat. You may recall that situation a couple of years ago. There was a petition to get people to sign to oppose the Bearcat. More recently, there was in 2014 a proposal to increase parking rates, which, by the way, hasn't come back on the table. I don't know if they've sidelined that or what happened, but the proposal was to increase rates. So myself and some other activists went out on the streets and got people to sign, I think over 400 signatures, people signing to say, hey, we don't want to increase parking rates, no thanks.
Sure.
And I had no problem whatsoever, you know, talking with people if I'm so well known and so hated.
Right.
You'd think I would have gotten somebody insulting me or being rude. And now, to be fair, there are people who walk by and ignore me, and maybe those are the people. But there are plenty of people of all different ages who are more than happy to sign the petitions.
So you think it's selective? Maybe the messages that are not getting through to people could be selective?
I don't know if I understand the question.
So, going back to my analogy, I think the apple cart has been so upset that people are just, in a lot of cases, and maybe you're experiencing something different, but it just seems to me that the message is getting kind of out there and misinterpreted or
Maybe you're
misunderstood.
preaching to the choir, so to speak.
You know, for example, one of the things that people like to bring up is the the beer bottle incident in the courts. You know. And I said, you know, and that's what, the city council meeting. And I sat there and I thought, and I looked at it and said, you know, okay, I get it. So they have the right to bring whatever beverages they want. I get it. All right. You're poking the bear.
Well, yeah.
Do you feel like that's effectively changing something?
So, no, obviously they didn't overturn the open container ordinance, which was the intention, that was what we wanted to bring to people's attention with that particular protest.
And that's theatrics of it I'm talking
And it's interesting that people are bringing that up, right? And the thing is, everybody has, and I'll come back to it, but everybody has something that's been offensive. There's been so much that has happened in Keene over the last decade that people have moved here. I came in 2006, but there were people who were here before me, like Russell Canning and some of the earliest movers. But there's been so much that's happened. If you've paid attention to it all, inevitably something is going to rub you the wrong way. It's just like you throw up a bunch of stuff against the wall and you see what sticks. With that particular issue, we announced it in advance. And I suspect had we not announced it in advance, nothing would have occurred.
Sure.
So the people in the city were prepared and they had a plan. And if you recall, the mayor at the time, Dale Pregent, stops the meeting 10 minutes in. And everything's going fine. He just stops the meeting to point sort of at the crowd, not address anyone specifically, and he sort of addresses and says something to the effect of, "You are not allowed to have brown bottles in here, and you need to put them away or leave, blah, blah, blah." And of course, we just all ignored him because, well, that's ridiculous. You can have whatever, you should be able to have. By the way, they were bottles that were beer bottles that had been emptied out, and then water had been poured into them. There was one that was an actual beer.
Well, yes, of course. You had to do
There's always that guy.
And so So he gets upset about this, and as though it's disrupting his meeting. And really, it was just people drinking from bottles in the audience, and he could have ignored it.
Right.
And that's what they've done subsequently, by the way. They sort of learned their lesson from this whole thing, because they did arrest us and charge us with disorderly conduct, I think it was, for that. Ultimately, then dropping those charges a year later, so literally the day before trial, they dropped the charges. And so obviously they didn't think they had a case, and they just wanted to hold that over my head with bail conditions and all of that. So it was a clear violation of the idea of right to assemble and free speech. They have drinks. How do I know that in that the water bottle the counselor has on the table, how do I know that's not vodka?
Yeah.
It could very well be, but the police chief didn't go over there and demand to search the city councilor's bottles. So it ended up being more than just an open container issue. They made it into a larger issue. They made it into an issue about sort of the two classes of people, the class of the politicians and the political class, and the class of the average folks, right? Because the police chief came over and demanded that I hand over my bottle for a search. Well, you have the right to refuse a search. If a police officer comes up to you on the streets or anywhere and they say, I need to see that, you need to hand that over. Nope, sorry, you don't have the right to search me unless there's some sort of probable cause. And just sitting in an audience drinking from a brown bottle is not probable cause for a search. So I refused the search, and then I was told, well, if I was going to refuse a search, I had to leave the meeting. Well, I'm sorry, that's a public meeting, and I see no reason to leave a public meeting.
What if you
they
didn't
arrested me.
What if you didn't refuse the search? What if you just went with the flow?
Well, because I don't want to encourage people to go with the flow and to consent to searches. The college kids downtown get harassed every single weekend with this same tactic, and it's not okay. And this is one of the big motivators for me to do some of the activism that I do, is that I really don't like seeing people who aren't hurting other folks get hurt, like getting arrested. I consider that hurting somebody. If you're just out enjoying your night as a 20-year-old college student, you're downtown, you're not causing any trouble, you're just enjoying a beer at a friend's house, and then you're walking from one friend's house to another friend's house while carrying that drink, I'm sorry, that's not a criminal act in my mind. That's not something that has created a victim. There's no one who would complain. No one in their right mind would complain about someone doing that. And so one of the things that I do is I work with Keene Cop Block, and we have some flyers that we hand out to people that inform them of their rights. You have the right to record the police when they come up and talk to you. You don't have to answer their questions, and you certainly don't have to consent to a search. So if we can spread those ideas, that means that people can flex their rights. And when people flex their rights, they're more likely to be respected. Because unfortunately, we don't live in a world where the people who call themselves the state or the government are respecting people's rights. They don't. And you have to stand up for them in order to actually retain rights. It would be nice if we lived in a world where everybody just respected everyone else's rights, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Can you see how people might look at you called it the drinking game, right?
Yeah.
How people might look at the drinking game and think, okay, this is stupid?
Oh, of course. It was
and
kind
this
of
is kind of what
stupid.
he's saying.
And
like, does that have a positive effect on you getting your message out if people see some of the methods as sort of maybe silly?
Well, so the other way to do it, and we did do it the other way, right, is to go to the city council and submit a letter to the city council that says, I, Ian Freeman, think there needs to be no more open container ordinance, and submit it, and then what city council will typically do in that case, if you're not a politically connected person, is they will accept the letter and they will put it in their meeting minutes, and then they will have a segment of their meeting where the mayor will say something to the effect of, and we have received a letter from Ian Freeman regarding the open container ordinance. Motion to accept as informational. Seconded. All in favor? Aye. And there goes your letter. It's right off the table. So that discussion was had in the past, and it doesn't go anywhere. Working within the system doesn't always result in what you're hoping for. Sure, you could spend years of your time trying to lobby all of the city councilors to, overturn this particular ordinance, but at some point, you're really just spinning your wheels and you're wasting your time. And to some extent, the drinking game was designed as a spectacle. It was designed to also make things fun. Because again, they could have ignored it, and then it would have been nothing, right?
Had
they ignored it.
And they did ignore it because the next city council meeting, even more people showed up. with brown bottles.
Right.
People came all the way from Manchester for this one, and they showed up and they drank in the audience, and the mayor ignored it that time. Last year, during the inauguration of the mayor, we came back in and we redid the drinking game, and they once again ignored it. And that's great, and that's the way it should be. People should be allowed to bring a brown bottle and drink from the city council meeting.
Right.
But yes, I see why some people would be rubbed the wrong way by that.
But now
that's
that
activism.
now that it's being ignored, though, you didn't change anything.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. Change doesn't happen quickly. The
Right.
political system is very slow and plodding. Anybody who's ever been to Concord knows how just awfully slow it is. Anybody who's been inside the court system knows how just atrociously slow and frustrating it can be. And there are things that can be done at the state level that can't be done at the local level, for instance. So the state could outlaw the state could prohibit localities from having open containers. So, maybe it will change at some point in the future. But there's another aspect to what I do, at least, and again, I can't speak for anyone else, but another aspect is that I am preaching to the choir to some extent. FreeKeene.com, one of its goals is to highlight the activism that's happening in Keene and in the rest of New Hampshire as well, to a lesser extent, because we want to recruit people who care about freedom, libertarians, voluntarists, these kind of folks. We want them to see New Hampshire as this beacon for where they can go if they want to have a chance at freedom. And so having videos of things happening that are exciting, not just testifying in front of a council or whatever, those are boring videos. Having more exciting videos is going to make something go viral perhaps, or get shared around more likely than if I'm just sitting talking to a city council member.
I want to bring something up too, and again, like we had been hoping that we were going to have the group Stop Free Keene from coming on. When we started, I initially kind of glossed over a little bit of the issues I had bringing them on here that we tried to bring. One of them I do want to address, and because it's kind of personal nature and kind of upset me just a tad. Years ago, of course, I've been known in radio for 20 years, and years ago I had an issue, and I brought it up to Free Keene. Well, I brought it to you specifically. I had mentioned something, and I think I basically wrote an article to you, and it was published in Free Keene, and it had my name on it. It was an experience that I had with the Keene Police Department. I had information about somebody who committed insurance fraud, multiple pieces of insurance fraud. So I'm at the Keene Police, and I said I would like to speak to an officer, and an officer came out, and a rather young kid came out, and I said, well, I have some, insurance fraud here that you need to look into. Well, I don't really want to get involved with that. You don't want to get involved, and that's what happened.
Really?
Yes. I don't want to get involved with that. You're not going to, no, I'm not dealing with that. And
Now, you don't have a criminal record.
No.
You don't have a long rap sheet
No,
of
no. So I
lying to
walk
the
out of
police.
there, and I'm like, oh, well, this is insurance fraud and forgery, but you don't. The
Yeah.
officer didn't want to.
And
So
why is this up
I'm
to
like,
you?
okay, and I had my head, yes, sir, officer, and I put my head down, and I walked out of that shiny new building, and I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, this is insurance fraud of thousands of dollars. This
Protect
is
and serve.
forgery of my own name.
Yeah.
And as I was walking out, it said protect and to serve. And I thought, no, but wait. Now, and I'm not saying I'm not a free stater, I'm not a free keener, I'm not any of these things. I'm a regular guy, right?
You don't
And-
have to be to have a problem with
but
the police.
no, as I'm walking out, I thought to myself, this is what I have heard people tell me goes on.
Yeah.
I never experienced it until, and so I had to go as far as emailing the chief of police to say I've got a legitimate problem. Finally, they put a detective on it, and that person got indicted for 4 felonies.
Oh, okay.
So I got it in the end,
Yeah.
but I had to work at it.
You got it in the end.
And that for me, that was a turning point, saying, okay, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe there's a little bit of truth in what these wackos are saying.
That's exactly what this
Now-
show is about, is trying to find that truth in the middle. I
Right.
don't think the truth is in how, telling parking attendants that they're thieves. I don't think there's much truth and usefulness in that. But arguing about the parking ticket I can see.
But here's the problem that kind of happened after I had sent you that article. I said, Free Keene may be a lot of things, but here's an experience I had, and they mentioned something, and I'm experiencing the same thing.
Right.
So that got published, and when I was
Now he's a
trying to get
communist.
when I was trying to get an opposing guest for you, that article from 2.5 years ago popped up, and I was accused of being a Free Keene sympathizer. If you read the article,
Guilt by association.
it's very, very balanced. It's like,
Yeah,
and I've always been that way. It's like, you guys are wacky with some of the stuff you're doing, but on the other hand, this, and this is what I found truthful. And it's funny to me that article was a reason they didn't want to come on the show. Was one of the reasons.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can find things that you disagree with as far as the activism and the tactics and all that, and everybody will have something that they don't like. But one thing that that you can't disagree with is the facts, and the fact is that the police, I think they try to do the best they can, and I find many of them to be very likable people, and I get along with most of them very, very well. They're human beings, and like all humans, they've got things that they have feelings on, and families, and all of that. And so that's one of the things that's changed about me since I've been here. Is when I got here, I was really angry at the police. I mean, I come from Florida, and the cops down there are a lot different in my experience. And I didn't have much experience in Florida, but they're just a lot different. And they're more anonymous because there's so many of them. Here you can know who all the police are, and they know who you are, and that kind of thing. But the thing that's the same between here and Florida is there's still basically a monopoly. There's nobody out there to compete with the police. They protect and serve, but they're really mostly protecting and serving their masters in politics, more so than the rest of us. Now, that's not to say they won't do their best if they're called to some sort of a extreme situation where somebody's in danger. I believe that most of the police got into the business of policing for the right reasons, but their incentives aren't what they could be. And what I mean by that is, and it's true of all government agencies, is their incentives are that, well, however bad a job they do, they're going to get the same amount of money or more the next year. And the average person doesn't have those incentives. If we do a bad job at work or wherever our job is, someone can say, Judy, you didn't do a good job with those vocal lessons, and I'm taking my kid away.
Client, yeah.
Right. And if you don't shape up, then you lose business. You can't do that with the police. You can protest. You can speak out. You could form a citizens advisory panel, and these are all things that have been done in areas where the police are really out of control. Keene, not so bad in comparison to some places. But people are frustrated, and they don't know what to do about it because complaining doesn't make a difference. In your case, it did. You went up the chain and you managed to make it make a difference. But in a lot of cases, for a lot of people, it doesn't make a difference, and that's frustrating because they want to feel safe and they want to feel protected, and then in the moment when they need the police the most, they're not there.
And I think in my case, it was that one particular officer that had the issue, I think, or whatever the issue was. He was having a bad day, or maybe he didn't want the person to get hurt, the person who was guilty, which
that's
you're an officer.
Irrelevance,
you have to be neutral. And so it just dawned on me that it's interesting that 2 years later that becomes an issue when I was just looking out for myself. It's funny. Posted on the Stop Free Keene website.
Their group on Facebook or their website?
I think it was their group. They talk about you, and since it's a public thing, I'm gonna share this, and I want you to kind of rebuttal, all right, based on this, all right. And they go on to say, Stop Free Keene was recently asked to appear opposite of Ian Bernard on a new local talk show. You legally changed it to Freeman, Ian Freeman.
The people who don't like you use Bernard, I've noticed.
Yeah. Whatever.
The host wanted us to debate Ian and his BS. We declined due to scheduling reasons, which I will say that is true. I mean, they couldn't make it at the 1 p.m. That's fine. None of us believe it's worth losing money to go listen to a narcissistic blowhard brattle on about butt coins, libderpy, and how awesome his volunteerist Minecraft server is.
Yeah, okay, that about sums it up. I mean, the folks at Stop Free Keene, from what I've seen, and they're all individuals, so they all have different beliefs. I want to make sure that's clear. But from what I've seen, many of them their critiques amount to "you suck" and you know insults, basically, just insults against the person. There's nobody that I've ever seen challenge the ideas in any significant manner, the ideas of freedom, personal liberty, the idea that you should be free to live your life how you want, as long as you don't hurt anybody else, that kind of stuff. And that's, to me, that's one of the reasons why they don't want to be here, is because they don't really have any ideas besides "stop it." You know, we don't want you here. Go away, you troublemakers.
Do you monitor their posts or anything like that?
I used to when they came out originally with the group, because it was pretty interesting at that time. There have been a long line of opposition groups. Stop Free Keene's just the latest one. Prior to Stop Free Keene, there was a group called Free Keene from the Free Keene Stigma. That group's actually still on Facebook, but there's only about 7 or 8 people left in it, so it's pretty much dead. Prior to that, there were 1 or 2 anonymous hit piece blogs. And if you look at Stop Free Keene's blog, and I do read the blog posts. I don't go to the group, maybe like once a month or something. I'll stop into the group if something's happening in there. But it's just a lot of anger, a lot of name calling, a lot of hate, and the blogs are anonymous. Right. So I don't know who's posting over at Stop Free Keene.
Anything they post on there, has anything that they've done or said finally get to you a little, or do you agree with anything they might have said? Because let's be honest, I mean, Free Keene in and of itself has a lot of little arms attached to it, right? So you've got Free Keene, which is essentially your blog.
Yeah,
that's what Free Keene is. FreeKeene.com.
A lot of bloggers.
It's a multi-user blog.
Is your blog, and it's got all the. But there's
and not
arms
all the bloggers
attached
agree
to it.
either.
Right. Well, there's arms attached to it. So you've got Free Keene, then you've got the Shire Church, and you've got the Robin Hooders, and all of these little things that are separate from you, right?
To some extent or another.
Okay. Right. Well, no, is that your position? That you're separate? You're not.
Well, I've done Robin Hooding, but not very much of it. Even though I was sued as one of the people in the lawsuit, I've only been out a handful of times in the last year or so. Right. Robin Hood of Keene wasn't a Free Keene creation. It was actually created in 2009 by an early mover named Lauren Canario, and then it kind of really took off in 2013 when it became this everyday thing. It used to be just something that activists would do when they had a chance. They were downtown and they would go and do it. It became more organized when James Cleveland took it over in 2013. So I've never been more than just an occasional Robin Hooder. But at Free Keene, we did create a page for Robin Hood of Keene to kind of put some donation information and some videos up on. So again, Free Keene is a blog that was designed to focus on the activism happening here. Robin Hooding is some of that activism that's happening here. So of course it has a place on the Free Keene blog.
Why is everybody so angry? Why is this? Why?
Well, everybody's not angry.
Well, no, everybody in this group there is a majority of people that are very angry with the activism, and why? But why do you suppose that is? Like why?
Well, as far as, so I can speculate. I mean, I think that it comes back to challenging the status quo. I mean, every time the status quo is challenged in whatever way, it's going to anger people. So even if we had gone inside the system with everything, like just asking politicians for favors, testifying in front of committees, which we do, we do that stuff. Sure. I can say we, some of us do that stuff. I'm one of them. But the 420 celebrations in downtown Keene, the drinking games, the Topless Tuesdays, some of these more controversial things, they just bring attention to issues in a way that otherwise wouldn't happen. People are able to normally go about their life and not encounter people sitting in the State House talking to politicians. That's not threatening to the average person. But if you go and you talk to politicians enough, or people get elected, as is happening, Free State Project participants are being elected around the state, not so much in Keene, but in other areas. And so when they threaten the status quo in the State House, well, then people come out and they rally against them then, right? And then people write letters to the editor about how awful the Free State Project is, and state representatives speak out and say things like, Free Staters are the single greatest threat to the state, and that's what Cynthia Chase said here in Keene a couple of years ago. To me, that's a badge of honor. I want the Free State Project and liberty activists to be the biggest threat to the state. Peaceful threat, I don't mean violence, and I don't support violence. But we are a threat to the state. We are a threat to the status quo. And everybody who's a part of the status quo, government employees, all of their families and their friends, are going to feel threatened by that. And they're going to lash out in a very angry and vitriolic manner, because that's what happens.
So
it's just how
can I
how
ask
it is.
again? I kind of asked this before and we got a little off from it.
Sure.
Because I feel like the whole debate gets mired down in the methods, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the perfect society in your mind?
Well, you know, I think that things are pretty good, all things considered. We do have relative freedom compared to the rest of the world, but there are still people, peaceful people, who are being harmed on a regular basis. I was just in Keene District Court this morning, and anybody who's ever sat in at Keene District Court or gone and looked at the docket there knows that it's loaded up with people who have not harmed anyone else. And to me, this is a big issue for me, and I can't speak for others. Like for other people, gun rights is a big issue, or reproductive choice, you know, whatever. But people being arrested that haven't hurt people is a big thing for me. So if we could change that, I'd be pretty happy. But another thing is, so like in the war on drugs, that would be a big one, because
Right.
if you don't have a war on drugs, then you don't have invasions of privacy like we currently do. You don't have the police state. You don't need bear cats. So the war on drugs has really led to a lot of terrible increases in government in our life. That's one thing. But generally, transitioning into a voluntary society, a consensual society, one where you're not threatened with losing your house if, let's say, you don't want to support the government school system. Because right now, this is again going back to the monopoly discussion we talked about before. Now, it's certainly true that the government schools don't have a monopoly on education, because you can homeschool, you can unschool, you can send your kids to a private school as well. But what they do have a monopoly on is the money that they're getting. They can extract $60 million a year, I think $64 million or something like that's the current budget here in Keene to run the schools. It's something around $18,000 per pupil, and you can have people educated for much less than that in the private marketplace. So wouldn't it be nice if we could just choose where to send our money? I mean, that's really the crazy ideas coming from the libertarians is, hey, you should be free to actually choose where you spend your money and on what you value. Like, I like having roads that are cleared. I like having salted roads. I like the safety aspect of that. I would have no problem sending money to something like that. I don't like the indoctrination that goes on at government schools. I don't really want to send my money there. I'd rather send my money down to the school down the street, the private school down the street, or provide scholarships or something to homeschooling parents that need a little extra money to make that happen. I think that if we allowed people, we as the government, which I'm not the government, but if the government allowed people to make choices, then we'd have a better society, because you know best how to spend your money. I don't think bureaucrats in Concord or Keene know what's best for you. And I think that people, individuals, should be free to make those choices, and that maybe you'll make the wrong choice, but that's okay. The bureaucrats are making wrong choices all the time, and there's nothing that we can say about it. If you make a mistake, maybe you'll realize it and you'll correct it next year. When the bureaucrats make a mistake, they usually keep on making that mistake year after year and give it bigger budgets.
How many mistakes have you made with the Free Keene project?
As far as like activism, you
As
mean?
far as the whole enchilada, the whole thing. I mean, some of the negative points that people bring up or conceive to be negative points. Have you ever stopped and thought, they've got a point? Because part of the biggest, when the name Ian Freeman is brought up with some people that are negative about it, the first word that follows that is narcissism. How does that make you feel? I mean, because people have this image about you that you
just
are
do
narcissist.
this to put yourself in
It's
front
all
of a
about me.
camera. Yeah.
Right, because I'm making so much money from this. I do Free Talk Live. It's my talk show, and that's kind of...
Which, by the way, and not to interrupt you, but from a radio guy standpoint, I do have to congratulate you on that.
Thanks.
That's huge. I mean,
In the top
Talkers
100
Talkers Magazine listed the top 100 talk show hosts. I think you're 46, 48?
We're down to like 42 or 43,
42.
somewhere around there.
That is in the industry. That's that's a good accomplishment. I mean, you've beat out people like Howie Carr on that list.
Laura Schlesinger. Herman
Geraldo
Cain.
Rivera, Herman Cain. I
Yeah.
mean, so some of these bigger names in talk show, you've surpassed them, which is interesting.
People are going to say what they're going to say, and that's fine. They can say what they want. but I'm actually the kind of person who prefers to be behind the camera. I don't really relish the limelight. I'm willing to do it. Like, I'm willing to go out and be the person who's out front, but I like to be behind the scenes. I called the show Free Talk Live because I didn't want it to be called the Ian Freeman Show or the Ian and Mark Show or whatever, because Mark Edge is my co-host. And I wanted to have a show that I could walk in and get hit by a bus tomorrow and the show could continue on, because the show isn't about me. I don't hardly talk about myself at all on Free Talk Live. We take calls. It's an open phone show, so we encourage listeners to call in and participate. And anyone from Stop Free Keene is certainly welcome to call in and bring up, you know, whatever they want to, but they don't. And so it really isn't about me necessarily. I'm just one of the messengers, one of many messengers. And I'm a doer. I'm willing to put it out there, and I'm willing to take the consequences from putting it out there that inevitably will come. And it's not easy to do. I mean, you guys have had a taste of it already, just, you know, trying to put this show together. You've gotten some crap from people, and it's uncomfortable.
It's because of this particular subject, because people are passionate about certain things, and I think
so passionate.
What has kind of gone on through the years and the activism that's gone on, that's how people feel about it.
But rather than calling me a narcissist or, you know, poopy head or whatever it is that people are saying, then
that was right after narcissist.
Why not challenge the ideas? Hey, is the idea of letting people make decisions for themselves a bad idea? Is the idea of letting people who are peaceful alone, leaving them be, is that a bad idea? No, of course not. These are great ideas.
So if they were to come up with something that you could see, yeah, maybe I went too far on this, or maybe they have a point, or, you know, you would be able to say, look, yes, I was wrong.
I would have to say that at least for the folks that I've seen in Stop Free Keene, they wouldn't be particularly good at communicating whatever the critique is, because it's usually surrounded by "you're an a-hole" kind of insulting language. So obviously I'm going to be more likely to take critique from somebody who can have a calm conversation and is willing to have a conversation. And yeah, of course, I mean, I've gotten a lot of critique over the years, and some things have been changed as a result of that. But at the same time, you know, there's always going to be a critic, no matter what it is that you do, no matter how unoffensive. I mean, I thought Robin Hooding was the most unoffensive thing that we've ever done in Keene. But yet, you know, once the city fathers trotted out the claim that we're harassing, threatening, and intimidating their employees, then people just believed that, and they, you know,
Well,
they
it
went
looks like
along
that
with
in the videos. They're calling her thief.
That was Chris Cantwell who did that, and he's not actually a Robin Hooder, but that's, you know, that's a subtlety that's going to be lost on the viewer.
But what's the difference? What's the difference? He's on the film, whether he's whether
he
he's
did
a
it that
Robin Hood or
one
not.
day, right, and then he left town. But that's a subtlety, and it's lost on the viewer, obviously. If you want to get into it, I'm fine with that too. I don't disagree with what he said necessarily, because I think that, you know, purely extortionist would probably be a more accurate term, because if I tell you that you either give me money or I'm going to take your car from you,
right?
But is that woman,
extortion.
that parking attendant, is an extortionist? She's
the one who's calling the tow yard.
She's the one going to her job.
I've had my car towed because of parking tickets.
Yeah,
it's not pleasant.
Not convenient.
I didn't like it. I was upset. However, here's the difference, and here's where we're going to have a disagreement, I think. The way I look at it, the way I look at it, no, I mean, I don't like feeding the meters, and I've been saved by Robin Hooders. I think it's been, you know, I get back to my car, I'm like, yeah, this is great. We do live in a society, and that's kind of the problem. We do live in a society. I don't like it. Do I like to pay for the meters? No. Do I think that people should be able to smoke pot whenever they want? Yeah, sure. I don't care. If we can drink alcohol, why can't we? You know,
as long as you're not driving a school bus or something.
You know, right? There's rules behind everything. In the city of Keene, there's certain places we're allowed to park, and we've got to pay money for it. That's it. We live in a society that.
It doesn't have to be that way, though.
But it's the way to change it by calling the parking attendant. That's where it gets lost.
No, that's not going to change that. That's not going to change.
And there was that one video, and maybe it was this person that you're referring to, but they said something about, so if they tow the car, then, you know, if I don't pay this, then you steal my car. And she laughed and sarcastically said, yes, we steal your car. And she laughed. And then it was put up on the screen. she says they steal your car, and she left! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. It was just sort of disingenuous.
Yeah, I don't recall that particular video. That may again have been Chris Cantwell, who I'm sure would be more than happy to come on and defend his viewpoint. I don't, we're all individuals, right? So I don't take things in the same way that Chris does. I don't approach things in exactly the same way. And other Robin Hooders didn't approach things in the way that I've done things. But one of the problems that you'll see is that people lump everybody together. And so I'm always very careful. Like, I don't want to talk about Stop Free Keene. I would prefer to talk about the individuals there who've said certain things. Unfortunately, their blog's anonymous, so we don't know who's writing the articles over there. But with the parking enforcers, in my history of doing Robin Hooding, I've always tried to be nice to these folks when I've been out there with them, but it's only been, in fact, Linda, there are two parking enforcers working for the city of Keene. One is Jane, the other is Linda, and Jane's always been nice. We've had fine interactions with one another. Linda, she started out being kind of grumpy, and then after I took my first parking ticket to court, which you can do in Keene, by the way, and it's pretty interesting. When I took my first parking ticket to court, her demeanor towards me completely shifted, and she became very friendly to me after that. And I don't know why. I mean, she had to spend her time in court testifying, so I would think that might upset her further, but no. She became very friendly. We had a very cordial relationship from that point forward, until the city of Keene came out with these claims about threatening, harassing, and intimidating. After that happened, her demeanor completely changed, and she became very cold to me and became very rude to me. And I didn't understand why. And I don't know if it's like she was told to not be nice or something like that, or what. But anyway, I'm just clarifying with you that I prefer to be nice to people, but at the same time, I am going to call them out on something they're doing that's wrong. So, for instance, to give you a better example of this, you may recall when the DEA raided Fat Stuff last year.
Yep.
I went down there and was out there for 4 hours outside, more than 4 hours, recording as much of that as I could because, well, again, Fat Stuff wasn't hurting anyone, and I don't think there's a victim there, so leave these people alone. The way I treated the DEA agents was different than the way I treated Keene police on the scene. To me, the people in Keene police are my neighbors, and they are people who I have rapport with. These guys from the DEA probably came from Boston or Manchester or something like that. I don't know who these guys are, and I don't want them around because they're not doing anything good. Whereas the Keene police, every now and then they'll get a real criminal, they'll actually bust somebody who's doing something wrong. And so I want to show appreciation to the police when they do the right thing. Like with the college riots that happened, I think they did the right thing going after people for causing destruction. In fact, they used my video that I shot for that purpose. I even took them down a high quality copy of the video so they could get better still frames.
Well, can I stop you there for?
Yeah, sure.
Because I've seen the footage, and on your YouTube channel, I think it's your YouTube channel, it's very critical of the police not doing anything. Look, there's a bottle throwing incident, and the police are standing there doing nothing.
It's true. They didn't do anything in that incident.
But you just said that that they did the right thing.
Well, like I said, I'll tell them they're doing the right thing when they've done the right thing, and when they've done the wrong thing, I'm going to tell them that too. So
did they handle did they handle the Pumpkin Fest riots correctly?
Well, after the fact, they did some investigation and they tried to make arrests, and during the event, they didn't do much that I saw, at least during that bottle throwing, which was 10 solid minutes, if not 15 minutes, of serious danger that people were putting one another in. And the police were all the way down one end of the street, so it wasn't like they didn't know what was going on. And in fact, when they were talked to later on, they acknowledged that they had contained the issue. And to me, it just seemed like inaction on their part. But if people are being put in danger, I support the police acting to protect people from danger. So that's why I didn't support what the police were doing on the day the DEA raid was happening, because Keene police were assisting with that. They were kind of guarding the door. And so when Jason Short, who's one of the Keene police officers, came out, I kind of tracked him with the camera and talked with him about it. But I wasn't mean to him. I just let him know that I didn't appreciate what it was that he was doing in this particular instance. I'd rather have them kick the DEA out of town than assist them with the raids. So it's just about giving them feedback about the things that they're doing. And I firmly believe that the police got more feedback from people in the public rather than people being very deferential to them and just sort of hanging their head and not letting it be known how they feel, then maybe they would be more or less likely to hurt peaceful people. I don't know.
So what did you think of the Colbert Report?
It was hilarious. What did you think?
I thought it was funny. I didn't think it made you guys look too, or
No,
made
of course
Free Keene
not.
look good.
It wasn't. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to. If
Right.
the Colbert Report calls or emails and says, "Hey, we want to come and do a report on you," you know you're going to get lampooned. I mean, you're going to get
So
made
why
fun
do
of.
it then?
Well, because
Because
why
of the
not?
publicity.
Publicity, yeah.
Because of the publicity. I mean,
Free Keene got 10
that's-
times the hits the next
well,
day.
Isn't that part of all of this? And it goes back to what I originally was saying is that, you know, you're not a stupid guy. You're a smart guy. You know media stuff pretty well. You know, and you're smirking. I can see. You know damn well that by doing some of this stuff, that's what's getting the attention.
Sure, sure. And actually,
You
there
know-
were people in the Liberty Movement who hated that we went on that show.
You're starting to the Free State Project people are starting to kind of step away from you now, aren't
Well, some of them. I mean, the Free State Project they're having a convention coming up in March in Manchester, and Free Talk Live will be broadcasting live from there. So,
But
and they
you're
haven't
not worried-
excommunicated us.
they? Well, no, but you're not, and you can't with a group like that. It's too big.
Well, they could kick us out if they wanted to. They could,
And
revoke our
you're not worried
participation.
that some of the backlash is going to be negatively affecting your libertarianism.
You know, like I said, there were actually a fair amount of people within the Liberty Movement, not just in New Hampshire, but the larger Liberty Movement that is all across the United States, who were all in a tizzy about this. Oh, how dare you, you're making freedom look like a joke and whatever. And, they just can't take a joke as far as I'm concerned. Have a little fun with yourself. Be able to laugh at yourself. Be able to, poke fun. And that's what we did. I mean, when they showed James Cleveland shooting a bow and arrow, those aren't our props. They brought those props and they asked us to use them, So we went along with everything they wanted us to do. The silly, tracking shot of kind of like you see in the movies where the heroes are all walking together towards the camera.
Yeah,
We did
yeah,
one of
yeah.
those shots for them. And so we had a blast doing it. And some people thought it was funny. And
Do you
other
feel like
people
it got
were
you more
upset.
recruits, whatever the right word is?
That's hard to say. You don't ever really know those things until later on. If somebody moves
Talk
to
about
New
it.
Hampshire and then I happen to ask them, hey, why did you move to New Hampshire? There might be someone at some point in the future who says, I saw you guys on the Colbert Report.
Right.
It hasn't happened yet.
Kind of hard to imagine, I have to say, for that particular reason.
It seems unlikely, but
Yeah.
you never know. There's a movie I produced called Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree that has been single-handedly responsible for a lot of people that have personally told me, yeah, it was Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree that encouraged me to move to New Hampshire. Not necessarily Keene, but just to move to New Hampshire. And that's really what my goal is, to encourage people who love freedom to come to New Hampshire and to get active.
So when will it end for you? When will this end? I mean, will you become a 45-year-old, 55-year-old man someday looking back at this saying, wow, look what I've accomplished?
That's an interesting question.
And now you're a married person with children, because things change.
Will
when
you still
have
be in the
kids.
city council meeting with your beer?
I have a vasectomy, so it's pretty unlikely I'll be having kids.
Let's see, that's what
Never
you
gave
call
birth. I have 4 grandchildren, so...
Too much information, but that's cool.
You went
Can we
there.
make this monitor work?
So I don't know. I mean, anything can happen. Obviously, things can change. But I like doing activism. People burn out all the time
Sure.
on activism. And one of the things that's nice about being in New Hampshire is that there's always something new to do. There's always something to get active with. And where I come from, in Florida, there was hardly anything going on of a liberty-oriented mindset. So I've always got stuff to keep me busy. There's always plenty for me to do. And if that changes in the future, I'm certainly open to that. But
Do you, when somebody says Ian Freeman's a cult leader,
Yes, that's another one I heard a lot.
are you a cult leader?
I guess it's technically true now because I am a minister of the Shire Free Church, and cults you can define as a very small religion, I suppose. But it's not, certainly not.
People look at it and they say you've got a group of people that are essentially followers of yours. That's
No.
what they say.
This is where they're wrong, right? Because
Right.
a cult more traditionally has a charismatic leader, and I don't particularly think I'm particularly charismatic, nor am I anyone's leader necessarily. I don't tell people what to do. I've never told anyone what to do. I can make a suggestion for an idea, and half the time no one cares. So really, people who seem to think I'm in charge, this is really the idea, is that Ian Freeman's in charge of everything that goes on in
Right.
Keene. And it's nothing more than conspiracy theory. I mean, it's ridiculous. I went to jail for 58 days, and things kept happening without me there. Now, of course, I'm sure the conspiracy theorists would believe I was running everything from the inside of the jail cell as well, which is, again, ridiculous. All I was doing inside the jail cell was reading and working in the jail kitchen for 8 hours a day. And then and every now and then I'd call the studio like once a day to try to put out whatever fires, because I run radio automation systems and things break.
Yep.
So trying to make things not break as much was essentially all I was doing from jail. But one of the things that I guess some people don't understand about the liberty movement, especially here in New Hampshire, is it's very decentralized. So people move here, they don't check in with like some central committee. They don't let Ian Freeman know that they're here or anything like that. They move here and they just get plugged into whatever they think's interesting. And if there's somebody who is really kind of out there as like they're a doer, they're cranking out videos or making radio shows, and they're really kind of making a splash, then I'll come to that person and I'll say, hey, how would you like to blog at freekeene.com? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. If they say yes, I bring them on board. Some of the bloggers, they don't even live in Keene, and they're not following my orders. One of them just resigned from the blog the other day over a disagreement.
Is that because they disagree with how you handle the free state movement?
No, that was, in that case, the blogger had a disagreement over the way I reported one of the boring committee testimonies and
I had heard
conquered.
that you photoshopped people out of the photo.
No, that's definitely not true. I didn't take any pictures. But it's decentralized, so nobody's in charge of anyone else. And I think it's hard for people who've sort of always lived in this paradigm of hierarchy to really envision that.
Sure.
Like the government is organized in a hierarchy. There's sort of underlings, and then there's managers, and there's the city council or the police chief or whoever. So there's always somebody at the top of the government. When you go to school, there's the principal and the vice principals and the teachers and the kids, right?
Is that what you meant by indoctrination before you said about schools?
Well, certainly there's indoctrination going on. I mean, I've gotten critique for standing out in front of the schools handing out information. You're trying to brainwash our kids. Well, they're in there for 8 hours a day. What do you think's happening? I mean, you don't think the government is brainwashing people? They're giving them information that makes people likely to believe in the state. They're giving them information about why the government's so great. And, we're trying to counter that information. But the decentralization is a really important thing to understand, and I really am not a charismatic leader.
3 minutes left in the show.
Jeez.
I know, right?
Wow.
It would have gone a lot faster too. I wanted to 2 minutes. Well, thank you
Your
very much.
editor wants us to feel
I stand
peace.
corrected. All right. Well, I tried.
I like
2
peace.
minutes.
Wow, there's so much more to talk about.
If Stop Free Keene or another group was here, what would you like to say to them? Or
I'd
what
like
do you
to
think?
say thank you.
What do they have wrong the most about you, or what have they posted that you think is just wrong and out
There's
lies?
so many lies that have been posted to their blog. I really can't refute them all here in any short amount of time at all. But I would like to say I appreciate them and thank you, Stop Free Keene or Free Keene from the Free Keene Stigma or the anonymous blogs that came before them, because to me they're acknowledging that the activism here, whether it's Free Keene or if Free Keene were to go away, there would still be activists here. They're acknowledging that we are having an impact and that people are talking about these things for better or for worse. And that's really the idea, is to get people talking. And if we weren't, if we weren't impactful, if we were meaningless, if we were some sort of just meaningless, pesky activists, then we'd be ignored because we'd be worth ignoring. So thank you.
Thank you very much for being on the
Thank you,
program.
Ian.
And I'm sure we'll talk again. And Stop
Maybe
Free
we'll get
Keene's
somebody.
invited to come down.
Yeah.
It's very difficult when you're a host and you try to be as neutral as possible. But I had opinions. You have opinions.
Well,
Everybody's
and there are
welcome
more
to call
people
on the
who
show.
have been researching this for a long time, and it would have been nice to have someone with more information at their fingertips.
So hopefully that will happen.
Yes.
We've got next week, I believe, we've got the Gilsum STEAM Academy, some folks from Gilsum STEAM Academy coming by, or at least talking about the funding issue going on with that. So we hope to have that next
believe in
week.
science education here.
And check it out, facebook.com/Monadnock Showdown. Thanks
us
a lot
know
to
what you
Rick
think.
Blood and everybody at Cheshire TV.